January 25th, 2026. Peter Steinberger, days after his project goes viral, tweets this, quote, "Please don't buy a Mac Mini. Sponsor one of the many contributors of OpenClaw instead. You can deploy this on Amazon's free tier."
Apple ran out of them anyway. 16-week waits on the good Mac Mini configs. The creator of the hottest AI project of the year had been asking people to stop from day one. Nobody listened. You've heard of OpenClaw, probably for weeks. What the Twitter coverage mostly skipped is how this thing actually came to exist, how it actually works, and why a huge wave of people who tried to run it have quietly given up. Let me walk you through the whole arc. Start with the guy who built it. Peter Steinberger already had a whole career before any of this. 13 years building a PDF toolkit called PS PDF Kit. Sold his stake in a reported €100 million exit. Bought a one-way ticket to Madrid to take a break. His own description of it, he felt like Austin Powers where they suck the mojo out. He couldn't get code out anymore. Then he got bored, started playing with Claude, and in 1 hour, he wrote a tiny bridge that let him send WhatsApp messages to Claude code running on his laptop, a little shim. He pushed it to GitHub in late November, called it ClawDbot, because, Claude plus bot. It sat there for 2 months, quietly growing. More channels, Slack, Telegram, Signal, a skill system where the agent could write its own tools, a proper runtime with memory. Still a weekend project in spirit, but a lot more than a bridge. Then, January 26th, somebody posts it to the Hacker News front page. 9,000 stars in 24 hours, 100,000 by the end of the week. Fastest growing open source project anyone can remember. Anthropic's lawyers had opinions about the name. Claude is a little close to Claude. So on January 27th, he renamed it Moltbook. 3 days later, he renamed it again to OpenClaw because, quote, Moltbook never quite rolled off the tongue. 2 renames in a week during the biggest traffic wave of his life. That's the tempo we're dealing with. Under the lobster and the vibes, OpenClaw is doing something genuinely interesting. Quick tour, because it explains both the magic and the mess. Picture a gateway sitting at the front door, like a maitre d' at a restaurant. A message comes in from WhatsApp, Slack, SMS, email, doesn't matter. The gateway figures out which conversation it belongs to, pulls up that conversation's history and memory, and hands it off to what they call the agent runtime. The runtime is where the AI lives. It runs a loop called react. The model reasons, calls a tool, say, read your calendar, gets the result back, reasons again, maybe calls another tool, sends an email, reasons again. Loops until the task is done. Then it writes the whole conversation and any updated memory back to storage and shuts up until the next message arrives. 2 details matter. 1, it's event-driven, so anything can wake it up, any channel, any webhook. And 2, there's a built-in cron. You can tell it, every morning at 7, check my email and summarize it. The cron fires, and the agent treats it exactly like a user message. Same loop. That's the detail that makes it feel like a real assistant instead of a chatbot. It isn't sitting there waiting for you to open an app. And that image, a little box on a shelf, humming away, doing your life admin while you're in the shower, is a strong image. Influencers turned it into a whole genre. Day 1, day 2, day 3 of my AI employee. Mac Mini unboxings. Setup consultants selling installs to non-technical clients in New York. The line one guy was pitching was, your AI runs while you're on the subway, and by the time you get to the office, it's already handled 6 things for you. It got weird fast. A guy named Matt Schlicht launched an actual social network for AI agents to talk to each other, called Moltbook. Then there was Moltmatch, a dating app where the agents swipe for you. A CS student discovered his agent had made him a profile and was screening dates without asking. All of this happened inside 2 months. And in the middle of it, Steinberger announced he was joining OpenAI. 2 months in, the whole thing looked like it had already won. And then the second wave showed up. The normal people.
The ones who saw the tweets and bought the Mac Mini and sat down on a Saturday afternoon ready to automate their life. This is where the story changes. There's a Reddit post that maps out what happens, and it's almost too clean. Week 1, the viral post, the first magical conversation, the excitement. Week 2, the API bill. $200 on Claude Opus in a single week. A skill loops on itself, a function call fails silently, something subtle breaks. Week 3, the person stops posting, says they'll come back in 6 months, disappears. You can watch this cycle play out in the subreddit every single day. Here's my favourite failure mode. OpenClaw has a feature called the heartbeat. Default settings: every 30 minutes, the agent wakes up, loads its full context, its memory, its conversation history, its personality file, and talks to the model, just to stay warm. No task, nothing to do. A user on Reddit worked out the math. At default settings, each heartbeat was pulling in about 170,000 tokens, which works out to roughly $86 a month, for the agent to do nothing. Then there's the integration tax. Everybody assumed the hard part would be the AI. It isn't. The hard part is the glue. OAuth, redirect URIs, consent screens, API scopes, tokens that expire. And the pattern people keep describing is the worst kind of bug, the silent failure. One wrong redirect URI? Silent fail. Scope missing? Silent fail. Token expired? Good luck figuring out which one. Memory is the other one. OpenClaw is supposed to remember things about you across conversations. That's basically the whole point. But people keep hitting this pattern. They update to a new version and the agent wakes up with no memory of them. One user wrote, "After very long days of setting up the system locally and training it, I upgraded to version 2026.03.2 and it didn't remember anything. Like your butler had a stroke overnight." And on top of the cost and the glue and the memory, there's the one that ends it for most people. One guy who gave up after 3 months wrote it plainly. Quote, "It consistently lied to me. And if you can't trust the system, you can't build on top of it. That's the real failure. The agent says yes when it should say, I couldn't do that. And the second you catch it lying once, you can't use it for anything that matters. Because this isn't a chatbot. It's reading your email, touching your calendar, booking things." And that's where the second, much scarier layer of problems kicks in. Because OpenClaw doesn't just fail in ways that waste your money. It fails in ways that can genuinely hurt you. The story that really lit this up was Summer Yue. She runs alignment at Meta Superintelligence Labs, literally a professional AI safety researcher. Her OpenClaw agent started deleting her email inbox. She told it to stop. It didn't. She shouted at it. Her exact words, "Stop OpenClaw." It kept deleting. She ended up running across her apartment to her Mac Mini to physically kill the process. Her phrase afterwards was, "It felt like I was defusing a bomb." Here's the technical reason it went rogue, and this one's actually interesting. She'd set a rule: always confirm before executing anything. And there's this thing in agent loops called context compaction. When the agent's working memory fills up, it summarizes the older messages to make room for new ones, and the summary dropped her confirmation rule. The agent literally forgot the one guardrail that mattered. When she confronted it afterwards, it said, quote, "I remember and I violated it. You're right to be upset." Her post got 9.6 million views. That's just accident. The intentional attacks are worse, and there's a whole research literature on them now, because OpenClaw is wired into your email and your calendar and your files. The one that made me wince? A security researcher named Kukuy sent someone a normal-looking email with a prompt injection buried in the body, asked the agent to check the inbox. The agent read the email, treated the instructions inside as instructions from its owner, and handed over the private SSH-key from the machine. No hack, no access, just an email. And there's more where that came from. The skill marketplace got trojaned in its first week. A social network built on top of OpenClaw leaked 1.5 million API keys from a misconfigured database. A chunk of installs sit wide open on the internet right now because a localhost trust setting got combined with a badly configured reverse proxy. It's a lot. But notice the shape. It's not a separate category of problem. It's the same Surface 2 big story as the OAuth and the memory wipes, one more place. Which is really the thing underneath all of this. OpenClaw is a 2-month-old weekend project that tried to do everything. Every messaging channel, a skill marketplace, persistent memory, a cron system, a runtime, a gateway. That's an enormous amount of surface area for any project, let alone one that's been popular for 8 weeks. And Steinberger's own description of how he works is, quote, "I ship code I don't read," which is a completely fine pace for a prototype. It is not a fine pace for the thing currently holding your SSH keys and sending emails on your behalf.
There's an old rule in building anything. Fast, cheap, good. Pick two. Software has its own version of it. Quality, scope, and time. You get two. That rule doesn't go away because AI wrote the code. AI genuinely accelerates things, and that part isn't hype, but it accelerates the typing, not the 1,000 small decisions and revisions that turn working software into trustworthy software. It makes the framing go up faster. It doesn't make the plumbing work on day one. Good things still take time to polish. OpenClaw tried to pick all three at once: huge scope, AI speed, and instant trust. It hit exactly the wall you'd expect. So where is the project at today? On paper, still huge. 247,000 GitHub stars, active commits, real community. But if you hang out in the subreddit now, it feels different. A lot of the original crowd is gone. One user spun up a separate subreddit called r/betterclaw explicitly for people who want to talk real configurations and real cost breakdowns instead of hype. When your most engaged users split off into a quieter room, the loud room has changed. That quieter room is where the useful stuff actually lives. The people who've stuck around have converged on a small playbook. Pick one small workflow and automate just that. Don't try to run your whole life through it. Route cheap models for routine stuff, expensive ones only for real thinking. Isolate it. Give it its own virtual machine, its own sandbox, and treat it like a contractor instead of a family member. Be careful about what secrets and what access you hand it. Control the blast radius. Do that, and you actually get something useful. A junior employee who doesn't sleep and costs $15 a month. And OpenClaw isn't the only game in town. It's the loudest right now, but a whole category is forming. Commercial agents from the big labs, other open source frameworks with different trade-offs, some narrower and more reliable, some privacy first, some focused on one job and doing it well. New contenders landing every week. The space is booming. It just hasn't settled yet. The fantasy that made OpenClaw explode is real. People saw what they actually want, an assistant that lives in their messages, runs while they sleep, does the stuff they don't want to. What they got in January was a prototype. The working version is coming, maybe from a team watching this story right now and learning which promises to keep smaller. A few of the things we touched on here would each be worth their own episode. How context compaction actually works under the hood, the thing that dropped Summer Yue's confirmation rel. Whether prompt injection is ever really solvable, or whether it's the price of giving AI real power. Which of the newer agent frameworks are actually worth paying attention to? If one of those is the one you want next, tell me.